where the ground opened up, jets of flame. Did people die? Houses were just destroyed and swallowed up by this enormous fireball. I mean, okay, that whole thing just billowing in flames, right? And then they won't disclose where these pipelines are. So when you buy a new house, there might be one in your front yard. I mean, literally going by on the street, right? And the reason that they don't want to make it highly known is that where are you going to plant the bomb if you're a terrorist? Well, how about blowing up one of those? That's, yeah, there's a little bit of, okay. It's very easy to use, though. Natural gas, it's a very simple thing to actually convert a car to actually burn natural gas. They've got buses that run it. It's a very simple thing. It's simpler than gasoline to use, right? It's very clean burning, but it still puts out carbon dioxide. It's not like it's, anything that puts out heat puts out about the same amount of carbon dioxide per unit heat. It is a fossil fuel. Well, one of the funny things is with natural gas is that if they're way off, in the middle of some desert and they're getting oil is valuable. Natural gas, they will often burn that off. They'll just rather than release it into the air, they'll just light it on fire and let it burn. Isn't that sad? Enough to heat so many houses or whatever, just because it's not cost effective to transport it to places where you can sell it. Right? You can't sell it for enough. And then this is one of the things. This will drive you crazy. Okay, natural gas. Have you guys heard of the oil sands in Canada? Yeah, there's this massive area where there's this oil-saturated sand, and what the Canadians are doing is they're taking it, and I don't know what the tipping point is price-wise, but it's some price per gallon. I think we're there now. It's certainly above $4 a gallon. This stuff's making money, right? What they do is they actually cook that stuff. They cook the oil sands, and it's sort of this crazy process, and they get a lot of water. It's very kind of messy. They're digging up lots of area, right? But they make money. They make money doing this. And one of the things they do is they burn a lot of natural gas to heat up that process and cook it so that they can get the oil out of this, right? So they're using this very clean burning fuel to generate this horrible oily crap, right? Which for an environmentalist, this is just a terrible thing to do, right? But for a businessman, it's like, no, the natural gas, a lot of it I think they get on site, it's basically free for them, right? So they just do it and they can sell the oil for so much more. I mean, business-wise, it's a no-brainer. So there we have it, right? So they're gonna dig up a lot of Canada, but it's just Canada. It's just a bunch of pine trees and okay, natural gas, blah blah blah, right? That's a person. I don't know that this slide. So one of the things about coal is it's inescapable that if you're burning coal, you are contributing to human suffering, right? And so, but this is a person in there, and I'm guessing that they're probably not wearing a respirator. Do they look like they're wearing a respirator? And the average life expectancy or something was 32 years old or something, right? That's just skin. You see his skin. Why doesn't he have a protective garment on, and why is he not wearing a respirator? Have you ever tried to work hard in a hot place with protective clothing and a respirator? It's like, my God, your face is sweating in the respirator. You just can't do it, So anyway, there he is. Coal is incredibly abundant. There is just a ton of coal, right? In, West Virginia, they are doing what's called mountaintop removal, right? So it's like, right? Here's like there's like a coal seam like this in the mountains, right? And it kind of folds or something like that. So what they'll do is they'll just kind of shove this little mountaintop in here. Who cares? That's just a valley, just shove that, right? And then great big trucks, right? Basically you just get it up to ground level and then just scoop it out with these enormous cranes. I mean, like all of us in this classroom plus, 3 other classrooms could fit into the scoop of one of these things, right? Put them on these giant dump trucks and cart it off. That's one of the most economical ways to get coal out of the ground. Yeah.
Realistically, with like electric cars and whatnot, being all efficient and not releasing greenhouse gases,
Mm-hmm.
how, again, realistically, much better is that than what we have right now? Because you're already like burning coal and stuff.
Right. So that's a good question, right? If you if you have electric vehicles are still using electricity. Electricity is largely coal, right? Okay, so the question is, what's the deal with that? And I think it's, even if you burn coal and you do that calculation, right, if all of your electricity comes from coal, you still release less emissions because of other efficiencies. But again, if you're getting it all from coal, it's not that great a thing, right? So back in the day, the first people to go and specify that we have to have electric cars, right, were the people in Los Angeles. Why did Los Angeles want a lot of electric cars in their city limits? There's a lot of smog. So when you burn petroleum, you get this smog and people suffer, right? So one answer is don't drive your freaking cars and use public transportation. The other one is get electric cars, and then where does the pollution go? Well, where does Los Angeles get their electricity? Is it these enormous coal-burning plants on the other side of the mountains in Nevada? Is that where they get their electricity? Yeah, on some Indian reservation or something like that, right? Right. So California's answer to their local problem was, let's take the problem, let's use electric cars, let's export the problem, burn more coal, right, and let's export it to the rest of the country. Right? I think the rest of the country should have said, no, you guys sit in your own filth. If you make the filth, you guys sit in it. Only they've got a unique set of situations that cause like real toxic smog, so you could be merciful, but that was the way I felt, at some point, right? Like, no, you made it, you sit in it, right? It's an abundance of fossil fuel. It still releases carbon. It's not renewable, but we've got a lot of it. In fact, this is a funny thing, right, is that U.S. is cutting back on coal production, and so there's actually a local company that wants to sell coal and ship it out through like Portland to China. There you go, huh? How about that? We're cutting back on our coal production, but China's just like, let's burn all the coal we can, right? They need it to. Hydroelectric, right? This is crazy. Basically, here's the notion: potential energy here turns into electrical energy there, and it takes work to turn the generators, and so there it is, right? And then these are, I don't know, have you guys ever toured Bonneville? Can you tour it now? Yeah. I think you guys were like little when Bonneville was like locked down and you couldn't tour it because of terrorism, like post 9/11 sort of stuff, right? I think you can tour it now. It's definitely worth a tour. The water comes in here. These are little gates that go in there, and then eventually it hits this turbine, turns the turbine like that, and generates electricity with this enormous dynamo up there. And the crazy thing about these hydroelectric plants is that they respond to the load that's on them. They keep. See, here's the crazy thing, right? All of the generating plants are all in sync because all of this electricity is going positive, negative, 60 times a second, right? And so the plants up in Bonneville are exactly synchronized. Everything west of the Rocky Mountains is on one power grid. Everything east is on another power grid, right? Those power grids are synchronized like crazy, right? So this thing is pumping power onto the grid exactly at the right rate, positive, negative, and there's a feedback thing that existed before computers, just a mechanical thing where if it ever lagged behind, it would actually let more water in. It would open those little gates and let more water pour in there so that it's always sort of pushing the curve, pumping energy into the grid, as opposed to if you shut off the water, the grid would actually drive this thing around. All generators can become motors like that, right? The grid would actually pull this thing along if it ever tried to get out of sync, right? Isn't that wild? Something people generally don't know about this, right? But yeah, hydroelectric is wonderful. It's renewable. It does not release carbon. It does kill the fish. The salmon. The salmon in the Columbia River. They would say when the salmon started going up that the river, of course, was clear then, right? And the river would run black with salmon. Yeah. Has anybody ever seen a river with like just a ton of salmon in it? It's an amazing thing how much salmon. You go to Eagle Creek when the salmon are running. Like I think it's in the fall, right? Isn't it? Right? Go there, and it's just amazing to see all those salmon in that creek, just like cheek and jowl. You can get off on the side, and there's more salmon than water in parts of Eagle Creek, right? I mean, it's just an amazing thing, and obviously we don't have that anymore. But yeah, they got fish ladders, but every dam that you go up through takes about 10% of the fish out, optimistically, right? Because they just get chopped up by the big turbine, right? Or don't make it, or all this stuff, right? And then 10%. For Bonneville, 10% for the Dalles, 10% for, right, by the time you get to where they need to go, the rate of taxation is pretty high. Yeah?
So there's other things like the reservoirs that are made by the dams,
Right. Yeah. So the river